makes me think about jiggies, which makes me think about jigsaw puzzles, and I'm like, that would be a good Halloween costume for Ziggy if he was playing there that day.
I guess so.
I wouldn't mind that.
Does the production overlay have like a custom field? Because it says Gerald on the overlay on the PTM.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure, yeah.
I never noticed that.
Every time they try to get a Korean player to come in and play in any of these things, and they just only have 70 barcode accounts and none of them with a real name, the production has to be ready to just slap whatever needs to be there.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Don't you have a tournament account? No. They're all barcodes.
Yeah, they are. It uses Gerald, so it's gonna be fun when you like. I don't know if you call him Gerald, right? But if you call him Gerald and I call him Geralt, and then we're talking about Jagannatha versus Jagannatha, and then how do you pronounce it?
Jagannatha. I think the only way to lose in that scenario, Zombie Grub, is to let it get to you. But I think as long as we both accept that we might just pronounce something differently, it doesn't really matter. You know, I'm gonna go for diplomatic victory on this one.
Yeah. I just like pointing it out so that the maximum number of Twitch viewers really tells.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is if someone doesn't like the way I say something, there is literally nothing I'm gonna do that's gonna make them change their minds. So it's okay. You know, that's just the way it is. You can't land all of them. Not all of them are gonna land.
Yeah. So Twilight Council, but then Ziggy doing something I think a little bit more interesting. Got two barracks of the factory going on here. It's not that it's a totally unique build, and it's one that he's shown preference to in the past, but it is just like, yeah, I mean, most people are going for the 1-1-1, right? Maybe like a Howling opener, modification on the factory, or just a Widowmine opener is still very much used. But going into the quote unquote 2-1-1 setup that a TVP build would look like with a 2-1-1. I know, it can be a bit of a surprise if you're not expecting it. I feel like Geralt might know what to expect from Ziggy. They probably play against each other on ladder, and I'm sure he watched yesterday's games as well in preparation.
Yeah, so the interesting thing here, right, is he's kind of got this with this Marine opener. He's been kind of pushing this back, and you were talking about how we had this quick setup with the second barracks tucked away. And when you do builds like this and you try to get creative and cheeky, it's fun, but you have to be ready for like the standard normal stuff. And a lot of Protoss players will do this to you. They come up with a couple of adepts, or I mean, typically I feel like it's usually a stalker. But in this scenario, when you don't have something like that fast bunker up and you take these pokes, these prods, suddenly your cool build that's only slightly vulnerable turns into a dumpster fire clown fiesta because you don't have your units in position at a fast enough time that a normal standard build would give you. However, that being said, does get rid of the adepts from the base, forces the recall to be spent, which is nice. And that Reaper is somehow still alive enough to be able to go back in and get the follow-up scout, which I also really liked. And I was going to throw another compliment Ziggy's way. That is, Reaper got a probe kill at the start, which is just generally difficult to do. And that is, in my opinion, related to the fact that that adept was across the map so early to do that damage. So it wasn't like Gerald just got like some massive free lead. He took a little bit of pain in exchange for doing what he did. But at the same time, he's going to be able to get away with a pretty fast third Nexus. And I'm wondering, how fast does Ziggy want to attack with this? Is this going to be like a Hero Marine tier? Like, we're not even going to get a star report. We're just going to try and push out with like 2 tanks and a bunch of Stim Marines. Because if he hits that fast, maybe he knocks the third off. If he waits for Medivacs, I just feel like he ends up being crazy behind in economy.
Right, yes. I think that is the best way to put it. So I would like to maybe see something, too, or that, or like right now, a third CC, right? Which, we're not going to have. So, it's really far away to call, but Geralt, I think, having a pretty decent opener here. I mean, he opened up kind of uniquely with 3 adepts, but that went into Blink, and then even cranked out a 4th unit before Warp Gate was actually the Warp Gate. So that was maybe a bit of a surprise for Ziggy. I think he's dealt with it fine enough, but he is going to do that push out, which is going to be spotted. As soon as he pushes out, the Stalkers blink in, as the Adept had given them high ground vision just barely, but it did. Is this actually the right call, though? He's going to be trapped. He knows the other army's on the bottom side, and this might have seemed a good idea initially, but now I'm wondering. It is buying a lot of time.
Yeah, I feel... That's what I was going to say. I'm like, I agree with you that this feels a little bit reckless, but I'm also going to agree with you that the time might be more important, because he's getting an Immortal, and Charge is almost done. And what is going to be What is usually good against the Zealots that we try to talk about but won't be is the Stim Marines with no medivacs, right? Because if he stims to run from the charge lots, the charge lots will chase him all the way across the map and kill him, right? Unless he somehow had like 20 plus Marines fighting just 5 or so charge lots. So Gerald just needs to try and crank those units out. This was still going to be a difficult attack to stop, but if he can force the stim and force the tanks to siege away from where the crucial infrastructure is, then I think he can buy himself enough time to starve this army out, because there's no sustain with this, right? You don't want to be stimming right now if you're Ziggy. You have stim as your contingency plan, and there it is. First stim does come up. One stalker blinks forward to try and bait the siege tank fire. They are shooting each other. This is a little bit what I was talking about. He does have one more tank in the back, but the Immortal provides that backbone. A second stim brings all these Marines to just half of their original health. And I mean, this gets mopped up like, I don't even know, Zombie Grub. You spilled water. That's not going to stain anything, okay? There's already no trace of what happened left on the map. And that was very well done defense by Gerald. And that's why you throw the Stalkers away, right? Was to just get enough time for that to happen, because you do need charge. If he's able to make that army there before charge is done, and there's 10 Zealots, Ziggy laughs his way to the bank, taking map 1.
And I want to highlight towards the end of that engagement too, he blinked away the stalker that was being targeted. Like, he did it twice, but just the fact that he consistently did it was pretty cool. And then I do want to say that, like, Gerald did make some hiccups in his pro production to make that defense happen. He had to fit in his gateways and his producing of Zealots. So there's actually, I think, only like a 4 worker difference, and there's a 7 worker difference, which I would say is like actually very acceptable, right, for Ziggy if his third was built on location. I think that's the one thing that could have gone a lot better for him. That's a much smoother transition. Anyone who like plays Terran will tell you how like better it feels, but it's only just now going over. So I mean, it definitely wasn't the worst engagement, I feel, though. Even though it was cleaned up, Ziggy still inadvertently did economic damage by having Gerald respond to it. And, well, we'll see how the rest of the game goes. Gerald has a warp prism that is threatening the main base. That seems like it's going to do some damage.
Oh, God. He's supply blocked, too. There's no unit.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate timing. I mean, just enough to scare Geralt away, but now Ziggy's like, yeah, I have to deal with this. Every time I want to move out, I got to make sure I'm dealing with the warp prism, too.
Yeah, and when we cue the SpongeBob line, rev up those turrets, or you're going to have Zealots charging all over your main base. Or he could, he could invest supply and just leave his army there and only play the game with 180 supply too. But that's the challenge that you're put into in this position. It's one of the smartest things that a Protoss player can do. Like, if your Terran player wants to be aggressive and you can hold off that first attack and then have the prism to threaten with, it's just, it's just way too risky for the Terran to just move out and assume you won't do anything with it, because 10 Zealots in your production, as the Marines are coming out one by one, they're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, yes, they will. Constant threatening there from Geralt with a Warp Prism, and even some Zealots on the low ground to hit the third base, because Ziggy did make a Viking. I think Geralt's like, I'm going to have to be a little more clever with how I do this, but he has multiple attack points to interrupt any Ziggy push. And not only that, Ziggy's composition, I don't know if was actually that great. Geralt went right into Storm, which at one point was the thing to do, and then it went back to going into Colossus, because the Storm was too on the nose, perhaps, and now it's back to having Storm. Well, Ziggy has no EMPs. His push could be stopped short with a Storm. It's already, inadvertently taking damage. He's not back at home defending against all of these Zealots. Actually, a large force of Geralt over here maybe opens up an opportunity for Ziggy's forces, but then how does he deal with 4 Storms?
Yeah, that's a good question, Zombie Grub. And based on what I'm seeing in my screen in front of me as I vomit, not a lot. He doesn't have a lot to deal with those size storms. The third base has been lifted off. We got Medivacs dying. There's Stalkers and Zealots. And, that's pretty much it. There's not much else there. Those guys are doing the job themselves. And with Disruptors being built back home, while you already have Storm done, can't really get worse than that. GG. Gerald takes the game. And I feel like we kind of broke down what exactly the plan was. We saw it unfold, and it just it happened as described, I guess you can say. We're like, all right, the prism's gonna threaten. There's Zealots on the low ground. There was a Viking, so the prism didn't go into the main, but that doesn't matter because there was a whole army left. So the Zealots killed all the SCVs of the third base. The Stalkers were able to slam and jam, and that was just a textbook, honestly. It was just like very, very straightforward PvT after the defense on that move out that Ziggy wanted to do without any medevacs.
Yeah, it wasn't really a power punch, it might have been like okay enough in terms of being able to play out the rest of the game, but then the rest of the game included him being backstabbed by 10 zealots and 4 stalkers, so that wasn't great. And then not anticipating the storm either. I was actually kind of surprised by Ziggy's reluctance to go into a Ghost Academy. It does seem to still be the go-to once you're on 3-base saturation, but thinking about, I mean, that for me goes back to him just not building it on location. It's a risk. It's obviously a risk. Like, and if he had been up against someone going for like no upgrades, mass charge out 3-base all in, oh, he's totally dead if he has a 3rd on location. But I feel like it's a risk you kind of have to take and hope that it completes. So even if they do counter, you can lift it and leave, because otherwise your economy is kind of just being like hiccuped, I feel, more than the Protoss, who goes right back to chronoing the probes and getting even their 4th base because they know your second push isn't on the way. But anywho, didn't have any EMPs, wasn't going to be pretty. And now Ziggy has to, I guess, mix it up into Death Aura.
Yeah, it's a classic Terran blunder, right? You see the prism, you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to leave my base, but you're not, and then you die. So it's going to be do or die time now for Ziggy to try and bring the series back to equilibrium, but Gerald definitely showing his stuff in a very, very, very strong game 1 showing. And as you said, we are loaded in to Death Aura Ladder Edition, and I'm very interested to see a bit of a more, I guess, experienced map now for everybody. Something that we can kind of talk about, where we're like, hey, these guys are. We have some of the maps that are really new. Some of the maps have been in for a season or 2 at this point, and here he is in the top left, currently down 0-1. The blue Terran player, he is Ziggy.
In the bottom right, as the red Protoss for Exxon, he is Gerald.
All right. Well, a little bit of a probe scout around his own base before he sends anything across the map. Gerald definitely does not want to risk getting caught, grabbed, or otherwise squeezed to death at the beginning of this game by Ziggy, who is building his barracks in his main like a good boy does. But he's going to build his engineering bay in the opponent's natural. And I like that. It's a filthy maneuver, but I love it, Zombie Grub. And it's a good one.
This gas
Block that base. Be annoying.
Yeah, this is a really annoying thing, but I mean...
Why not? Why do you build the second one instead of just putting a little bit more build time into it? I guess worried about getting surrounded faster? Engineering bays have the highest, I guess, no, probably even higher than the command center. They have like the highest hit point per build time, right? Of any structure that Terran can make, because they take the same amount of time to build as a depot, but they have over double the health or something like that. It's like 750 or 850 versus 400. So what would normally on any other building, I don't know why people ever blocked with bunkers, because they're like, oh, it's 25 minerals cheaper. But with the build time, if you only build a bunker for half a second, it has like 15 health. So there's not really like, yeah. I love the building block memes though.
Things are kind of awkward, I feel, for Ziggy though. Like, he got a really early gas, it felt like, and his plan, I thought, was to go right into a factory as soon as he got 100 gas beyond his Reaper. But then the probe came in and gas blocked him on the second refinery, which I don't know if that changed his plans or not, but it is now kind of awkward. You see a high ground command center, but not much was like on the way, so it's kind of like, oh, sucks, I have to hit a high ground command center. He's kind of used to it though. I mean, he's done this in the past, so I'm saying it's the worst thing for Ziggy, but usually ideal for a Terran. And then only just now finishing up his factory. So I don't know if his ultimate plan was to do something we saw from Beyond early on, right, with the engineering bay and then the Hellions, and he was interrupted, or I'm just totally reading into the wrong things. But I don't know, I feel like that turned more awkward for Ziggy, actually.
Yeah, I think for Ziggy, like, at the very least, from a Terran perspective on this scenario, knowing that assimilator can see my command center building in the main base always sucks, because you know the Protoss player built their thing in the other spot. Now, he tried to tuck that third CC, and he did successfully. Gerald has not seen that third CC, but that's exactly the kind of thing you want to do here, because if you're the Protoss player watching this, if you're like, you see your assimilator, you're like, yeah, okay, I gas stole, He doesn't have tech because of that. I also see that the natural command center is there, which means that you know when it's going to finish. You also know that there's no gas being mined from the natural. So you feel even more comfortable about being greedy because you don't have to worry about anything. The chances that there was a factory hidden outside your base in that scenario are like insanely low. Like that'd be one of the most risky moves you could possibly try to pull off as Ziggy. Like we won't see anybody do that except for a guy like Maru, honestly. But good poke back here. Stutter step in to get rid of the adepts with the pressure that are being brought, but even he is feeling that pressure as we see that supply depot get that little upgrade going. That little skin on it now. My favorite depot skin, the one that gives it double supply. Costs though. There's a cost, and it's not with money.
Yeah. And it's such an awkward supply block too. As supply blocks go, they're generally awkward, but then he was also like seconds away from finishing his 3rd CC. So it really would have ideally been just that as the supply depot. Yeah, I mean, Ziggy might be just making the best out of a bad scenario. It's hard to do very much with only 1 gas, but certainly a 2-1 setup can do it. You know, you're only really using gas for stim and then tank production. And the rest of your minerals that you're banking up goes into a 3rd CC. I mean, maybe Gerald can actually, like, go through all those motions in a game and think that far ahead and, you know, kind of bet that it is a fast 3rd CC, but what sucks for Gerald is that he can't really get much confirmation on that with the opener. Just blink charge openers aren't going to get you very much. Oracles, observers, even if he had made a sentry, actually wouldn't have been a bad call to get confirmation, but only just going to get an observer and see for sure. Is Adept not even going to be able to stick around to see when the 3rd CC lifts off, which would have been nice if he scans, because I guess he hasn't gotten much information either and sees that a 3rd base is in fact on the way. A little scary without seeing the gases and the natural, just in case someone is going to bring back that kind of what people were saying, the Zound style, right? Just the all in with basically no gas. But we'll see how many, I guess, what's the word? How many risks Ziggy wants to take? Because I feel like he could slap down that 3rd with a tank on the high grounds. You also got to be prepared for a decent number of blink stalkers to harass you.
Yeah, this is one of those things you just need to be really careful because if they get into the south side of that main base and nothing's in range of that spot, obviously you're worried about stim and combat shield. Ziggy has a tank that covers that. But that 3rd orbital, you could just chip away at it, right? Why not? Okay, see there's a tank. I don't know about immediately blinking up because now the Marines can actually kill at least 1 stalker. But why not just sit down there, poke at the orbital? I would unsiege the observer because you're begging for a scan from a Terran with 3 orbitals. Yeah, goodbye. If he had unsieged it earlier and just kind of pull it back once the stalkers blinked up, I would have liked that a bit more. So good reaction there by Ziggy. Doesn't really lose anything, and I think he actually gains some value by buying himself the freedom of getting rid of the observer, so he can't really be pressured there anymore. But it's not like Gerald's in a bad place. His 3rd is fully saturated. He still can poke the natural with these stalkers. It's just, you know, you can kind of tell, I guess, both of these players still feel a good bit of pressure here. We're not necessarily getting the top tier Korean level play, but this has absolutely been a fun series thus far.
I mean, they're trying to play it very smart. Ziggy might be taking more precautions than we would expect from a Terran, like a high ground command center, but ultimately, if it does mean he takes less damage, and that might still, you know, go ahead and win him out the game. 3rd CC is finally going to lift over as he gets comfortable on his bio. Stim combat shield being done, +1 attack going to finish. I am, again, worried about any Ghost Academy timing. It feels like with his solid economic setup, he's had plenty of SCVs. He's going to saturate that 3rd base really quickly. I feel like it definitely is called for to get a decently timed Ghost Academy, especially if you would slap down a scan and see that they're a High Templar, but even without it, I usually would expect the Ghost Academy just at a certain point in this matchup.
Yeah. The Ghosts, I mean, especially ever since they added the upgrade for EMP, right? And then they also had the Ghost start with enough energy to do a little bit of action on both sides of the fence. That was always going to be one of those things that just kind of made the Ghost like a general bread and butter unit for Terran. But it's cost prohibitive enough that I guess you kind of have to feel comfortable to do it. But I'm with you on that. Almost everybody just kind of blindly gets them regardless of what the Protoss is doing these days. And I think that's for very good reason. Ghosts are just awesome to have. And also, if you get into a scenario where you don't have them and your opponent has Templar, you usually just die. So this will still be hard to attack into a Terran player with Templar, but I think back to like just some of those gnarly storms that we actually saw on Gigantha, right? Like just some crazy action, shredding the bio to pieces.
And Gerald's going to be
there's the Ghost
looking.
Academy.
Yeah, but it's not going to be here for what is. I don't think it's going to be like necessarily a real fight. I think Gerald's looking to catch units off guard, get a really good slap down, and maybe catch a tank or something like that. But I mean, maybe inadvertently it's going to cause a base trade. Ziggy about halfway across the map is still continuing to walk across the map. Okay, now he decides to turn back home. Gerald could try and meet this. Like, you have storms on the high ground as long as they don't get taken down. There's a very weak warp prism that is ferrying them. There's 2 Vikings looking for the kill. There's 1 good storm. Second storm not nearly as good, but still so many more storms, actually. All 4 High Templars get deposited, even though the warp prism falls away. Does he stand here? Does he recall? I guess he's going to stand here to get the storms in.
I mean, he's actually still getting some pretty sick storms, regardless of whether or not he could have saved any of those units. I think I can definitively say he got the most value he could have. Was it the value that he wanted? Different question entirely. But
yeah,
at the very least, I think that Ziggy probably could just move across the map and kill him had he not gotten those Templar out of the prism, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe he could still go kill him right now, but my point is he definitely would not have been able to defend an attack if he hadn't gotten all those Templar out and burned all their energy, because Ziggy did stand in the storms. He took just look at the army. A lot of these units are very low on health, and you need to take a little bit of time to let your forces get healed before you walk into another blender.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, if those extra 4 Templars are dead, he's probably across the map already and with healthier units. As it is, Gerald not only has backup storms, right? He's not desperately warping them in right now. He also went into double Immortal production, not just because he doesn't have a robotics bait, but I think that's actually the smart call. There are so many Marauders, and weak Marauders at that a couple of Immortals would actually be one-shotted if they were involved in the fight. I know they're around, but where the heck are they? Okay, now they're coming forward. Maybe it's too late. They're going to need some charge lot buffer to help them as the Archon gets destroyed. Widowman's going to pop both of their shields. I mean, those Immortals would have been so much better with the High Templars, but it looks like they're still going to be able to push this back.
Yeah, the siege tank's gonna get picked off by the Immortals. Good pickup there with the prism to keep it alive. Is he doing some weird micro? Oh, he couldn't see it because of the cliff. Right.
Took me a second as well.
Science.
This is it's an interesting game now. I mean, he killed a lot of probes, but Geralt was actually, I think, building during the process, and then also was at a decent count anyways. Yeah, definitely needs an observer.
Yes, please.
Is he dragging one? Oh, okay, he's got one for the left.
I'm like, there's got to be one coming from somewhere, right?
And there is. So now he's going to clean all this up. But all right, so Geralt currently has an 8-worker lead, but Ziggy's not really on 4 bases. So whoops!
He did the thing.
Yeah,
he did the thing.
Yeah. But I mean, funnily enough, since he's not pushing that direction, I'm not sure if Ziggy or Geralt's going to be saddest about that. What he's going to be sad about is not realizing that Ziggy is pushing from the left direction. Desperately forces an Archon. At least it'll help out in the future battle, and this should be cleaned up. I love the double warp prism. I'm not sure if that was entirely on purpose, but I'm digging it.
He wants that Roddy prism, and you know what? I don't blame him. Don't blame him. You know, it's like when you're playing the cup shuffle game. You're like, oh, which prism are the 4 High Templar in? One of them is empty. The other one has 4. You know what I mean? There you go. Yeah. You get the guy to suicide all his Vikings trying to snipe the right one, but he gets the empty one. Boom, boom.
I mean, he's not even got any Vikings anymore, so not even really needing to worry about that. And I imagine at one point, yeah, one of them's going to be used as harassment. That might have been his plan. It felt like a risky thing to do because he made those back when he was about to defend his 4th, but apparently it's going to pay off. Ziggy only now getting his 4th base up. Geralt's had his 5 for a little while. And just catch this warp prism. That's always nice. Really, I don't think he knows about this army. A couple of storms about to drop right on top of that army.
Ooh, yeah. And he's done a good job with the storms in this game. We have not really seen a lot of good counterplay from Ziggy against those High Templar in this series thus far. He's actually apparently getting some harassment natural. There's something going on over there. He's got obviously this massive attack at the front. He can use a prism to warp in and reinforce. He has the other prism dancing around, shuffling units to keep them alive. So I was gonna say, I actually don't mind a double prism setup at all. There's obvious good usage points for both of them. And then the Zealots are gonna run up front and do their thing. And this is looking pretty good for Geralt. He's happily at 5 bases. He's got the Terran pushed back onto just 3. And we all know that main base mine's out. So you're not really a rich boy anymore here if you're Ziggy. You're below 100 supply. He's gonna struggle to climb back up over that. And he's going to start floating gas because he can't afford to build medevacs, tanks, or mines. All he can do is build Marines and Marauders, which pretty much only cost minerals.
Now he's at half the supply of his opponents towards the end of that fight there. Now,
Yeah, that's